So to come back to this, as you helped us orient ourselves with the bridge, and then there are some buildings there that probably will not be there in the long-term future.
That's right, and I think what you're looking at on your screen now are the existing conditions, which transportation engineers and I'm sure just plain people out there that navigate through this every day can identify it as what we've seen as a clover leaf in the city.
Yeah.
It's really not a very good place to put something like this where you've got traffic going in different directions, you've got diagonals instead of straight right angles.
Mm-hmm.
It all makes for some really dangerous stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I think Ken and his team have come in and presented a vision for us.
Well, maybe Ken, you, when you were given that job, what did they tell you, what they hope to get out of your advice?
Well, I think President Brown and Michael and the senior staff at BU were really wanting to look outside the campus, both outside in and inside out, and think about the long term. And what's really interesting in the life of cities is that sometimes there are great ideas that get frustrated for a period of time, and then they have an opportunity to come back. Mm-hmm. And what we discovered is that one of the early presidents of BU, President Merlin, had a vision for what he called the Charles River campus, which clearly was all about that relationship, and there was an esplanade that was being developed along the river. The buildings of BU were to face out onto the river. Early in the 20th century, in the late 20s and the 30s, this began to be frustrated as we all fell in love with the automobile, and Storrow Drive was pushed through, and you can see the extent to which that has created a barrier where the BU beach is.
A very sad story. I understand that the legislators were locked into the chambers until they made a decision. I think there was some forcing the issue, and I think it has hurt BU enormously, and I'm glad this is being addressed.
Well, that was then followed by the Mass Pike, which really added insult to injury. Clearly served the people of the Commonwealth in very important ways, but absolutely severed the campus in two and severed it from Brookline and created this knuckle that Michael was talking about.
But it was interesting, BU's president, he spoke at the Boston Chamber of Commerce, and he described BU as a city in the city.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I think it is really, it has its character, and it can be a very special area in the city, and I think that's something that you really want to emphasize.
Right. If we go to the next image, what our planning in this area has been all about is taking the greatest problem and turning it into the greatest asset.
Right.
So the no man's land at the knuckle can be transformed into something we call Commonwealth Landing, which is a combination of a multimodal transit hub where you would have an interface between the Green Line of the MBTA, the urban ring, possibly even future rail connections, but a really strong pedestrian hub. You would have cyclists, pedestrians, but we would also have a great public space. We'd have an 8-acre public space that would go
Let's look at that space.
Across Commonwealth Avenue.
So that's the space right to the left of the BU Bridge on the Boston side.
From where the BU Academy is today over to the BU Bridge, with a land bridge over Storrow Drive. The grades work out perfectly to accommodate that, which would really give terrific access to the river. And our thought here is this is not only about the BU campus, it's actually about connecting the town of Brookline, the city of Boston, and the city of Cambridge, all to the river. This is something that would be a shared resource for the university community, but also for all of our neighbors.
Yeah, and also with the river becoming swimmable, that could actually be a BU beach there.
Right.
And I know that the sailing pavilion will be moved downriver, so this will become a very important recreational area for the whole region.
Now, I think what's interesting is we have been out talking about this vision to an incredibly wide array of agencies and departments in the 3 municipalities, a whole range of stakeholders, and it's really gathered a lot of support. There's a lot of consensus around this. And what makes it possible in the long run is that all this infrastructure we put in mid-20th century is actually aging infrastructure. We
Yeah.
hear a lot about that these days.
Just the bridges over the
It
Charles.
needs to be repaired, it needs to be replaced. We were talking about the fact that the BU Bridge itself needs to be substantially
Reconstructed.
rebuilt, which creates opportunities to improve pedestrian and cycle access. Well, the same is true for all this infrastructure. And so if we go to the next slide, what we see here is a scheme that we have been working on with a set of civil and transportation engineers, some very skilled professionals, and with all of the state agencies and the Turnpike Authority and all the various groups who have an interest here, showing how that aging infrastructure can be reconstructed in new ways that would introduce an urban street grid, meaning
Yeah, yeah.
turns at right angles, normal intersections. We'd get rid of a lot of the weaving patterns that are so confusing, that are causing accidents. We would simplify the turning movements. There are over 100,000 vehicles per day that now come through that cloverleaf.
And
that
how many
Michael mentioned.
pedestrians go over that intersection a day? Must be tens of thousands.
In the heart of the day, there are several thousand per hour who are moving through, over 2,000 per hour.
It's similar to what you would find in the central business district around State Street at peak.
And you're speaking of aging infrastructure, I mean, probably the bridge over the Mass Turnpike is definitely aging.
It is.
And probably needs to be strengthened because you plan to add density, to add development there because it's going to be accessible by public
Right.
transportation. So it'll be a
There's-
great place to have new development.
Commonwealth Avenue is already being reconstructed
Yeah.
now through a joint project with BU, the state, and the city. Already made a huge difference, providing pedestrian bump outs at intersections,
bike
better
path.
facilities
Bike
for
path.
bike
Yeah.
paths.
Yeah.
And it's half done. The remaining, the western half will come. That will
Yeah.
make a greater difference.
And it was wonderful with the Mayor Menino with his new bicycle czar.
Absolutely.
Really made a
Right.
big statement
Yeah.
of the bicycle path
Right.
along it. And you also show on your map, you show some new development right near this 8-acre common ground.
So having rescued the no man's land by taking these lands that are currently inaccessible and absolutely impossible to use and introducing this normal street grid, what we find is that there are a whole series of sites here which surrounding now, instead of surrounding a highway cloverleaf, they're surrounding a transit hub. And that creates an opportunity for BU to really go back to its early 20th century vision to connect to the river and to create a new heart in the middle of the 1.5-mile campus, which is where all the students cross every day as they go
Yeah.
from their dorms to their classes.
And what uses, what will happen in the buildings that you see near this knuckle, this hub? What will be in those buildings?
Well, I think that's yet to be determined in terms of what we want to put there. I think we're obviously our university campus, so we would visualize uses for academic research and probably mixed use. What that proportion would be, we don't know.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
You know,
And right now, as you walk outwards from Commonwealth Avenue, there are a lot of very dead stretches
there are.
with parking and so I think there's a great opportunity in terms of urban design
There is.
to make it visually more
Right,
interesting,
right.
to have
Yeah.
street level activities or even plantings.
Yeah.
And when you walk along Commonwealth Avenue, when you come to this area where the green space is, you will be able to look over that green space down to the water.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's right.
And not only look, but actually
Walk.
follow your eyes and
Yeah.
make your way right down to the
Yeah,
water.
yeah.
And I want to keep coming back to cyclists as well.